Good evening, everyone. I'm Reese, and I'm from Inquire, and we're here tonight with Thomas Freeston, the Kent Union's Vice President of Welfare and Community. So,
hello, and thank you for having me for this really important conversation and part of accountability as an officer.
So how are you feeling tonight, Tom?
I'm feeling good, yeah, well, a bit under the weather, but still going along, it's nearly the end of term, but there's still a bit more work to do.
Almost holidays.
Yeah, exactly.
So first I wanted to start with asking you about your work on student safety.
Yes.
You've led Safety Week and night walks to review CCTV and lighting around the Canterbury campus. How do you plan to implement the support you've given for Canterbury to the Medway campus as well?
Yeah, I think first of all, safety is, in terms of safety itself, is a really important topic for me. As a former member of Respect the No last year, I was really passionate about that issue, and it's something I'm really keen on working on and have been working on this year. And the work I've done so far hasn't been a student priority that was voted on for by students. However, it's a thing that that will be really important, especially with clocks going back and it getting darker earlier. So in terms of support in Medway, I was a Medway student last year. I studied my master's in Medway, so I know what the Medway experience is like. And I know that there isn't always equal opportunity, and kind of the same things that are in Canterbury that are in Medway. So I'm really keen to work with Medway students and have done so far. So we recently attended a Medway roaming forum, which was set up by the Hub and the three universities, Christchurch, Greenwich and Kent. We went around talking to students about kind of more generally, not necessarily safety, but students of faith and what do they feel adequately supported? Is there the provisions on campus there for them? We had some really positive feedback, but also some students saying that there was more need for faith spaces, a Friday prayer room for Muslim students. And in terms of safety, it is an area that I realise that I haven't been able to do as much in the Medway campus as I'd like, but that there's always opportunities to learn and grow. So in term 2, I'll be, asking more questions and visiting the campus and reviewing the lighting there, and setting up the opportunity to do that. I was recently involved in the Canterbury one, but I will definitely go into Medway and conduct a lighting review and CCTV review.
Touching on your mention of students of faith, how do you plan to engage and work with them more to make sure that they feel adequately represented?
Yeah. Students of faith are a really important community that Kent Union are focusing on this year. One of our priorities as an officer team is community and belonging. And students of faith have been identified particularly as an area where Kent Union hasn't been the best at, and it's something we really, really want to work on. So in terms of faith, in terms of what I said about Medway, we've started there, engaging with Medway students. I know that Lupe wanted to do a survey for Medway students about faith, and I think that's a really important piece of work, and I'd happily support it. But I think for me, it's about understanding what the issues are, what support do we have in place. It's about liaising with our student groups, our faith groups, and kind of finding out what issues there are. Unfortunately, we didn't successfully get a faith network chair this year, which is really unfortunate. And I was really trying to push that position. We had a faith network coffee social in early term, September, and I spoke to a few students, particularly like the Jewish Society, and tried to engage them in that, but they didn't really uptake it. So perhaps we need to look at ways we can engage them and represent them. And I think it's really for me about understanding and working with them to then put in things that are what they need. I know we're also working on faith spaces on campus. The mosque has been refurbished, so they're having their prayers in the sports hall. But also we want to ensure that all faiths have adequate spaces on campus where they can practice their religion beliefs.
Speaking of surveys, right now you're working on the cost of living survey, and you've recently received around 700 responses. Right?
Even more.
Yeah, a
800
right?
now.
Do you feel though that your survey sufficiently represents the range of our student body, and does it include the Medway students with this?
That's really good question. I think that's one thing that this survey is an important focus, is ensuring it is diverse in its responses and ensuring that we can capture that so that we know what to do for particular groups of students.
You've put it on the Kent Union bio on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
How else would you want to,
do
you think, will efficiently promote the survey?
So in terms of the diversity so far, we've had about 50% white British and then 50% other. So that's an amalgamation of all different races as well. And I'm really proud of that because that is quite a good kind of spread there. And in terms of Medway, like you mentioned, that's one area that has been quite lacking in our responses. We've had about 25 students, which is really low. And in terms of what I've done for that in particular, I've liaised with the head of Medway operations to send out an all Medway email to students asking them to fill it out. But also I've been liaising with the individual student success and attainment managers in each division to promote the survey within their division, to ask their students to sign to fill it out. And having done that, I had seen a really big increase in the response rate. I try to utilise social media as much as I can. Like meme pages, they are a different form of engaging students, and I've tried to use that. And I'm really proud that so far we're at 800. I'm still pushing for 1,000.
How long do you think you'll keep the survey open for responses?
Yeah, provisionally it's meant to close on the 14th of December, so next Wednesday. However, I might extend it over towards over the Christmas and into the New Year, because I don't believe that the data could actually be analysed till after then anyway, so there's no point closing it until actually we can start the data analysis anyway.
Going back to student safety, during October, some of the students of the LGBT plus community experienced hate crimes on campus, which were reported to the police. We actually covered this on one of our issues. As VP of our welfare and your priority on belonging, how do you plan to work with the university to reassure that students of the queer community feel safe? Yeah,
it's a really important thing for me as someone from the LGBT community myself, and being part of Respect No last year, but also being part of the LGBT network. It was an area I was really passionate about. And having read the Inquirer article and hearing some stories recently about recent attacks on the LGBTQ plus community, it's been really concerning. And so what I've done, kind of straight off hearing and reading that article, I went to the head of campus security and I asked them, are you aware of these incidences, and what can we do together to reassure the community and put more initiatives in terms of awareness campaigns and building an inclusive environment. So the police are aware of it and are dealing with it, but campus security are going to raise it again with Kent Police, because they have quite good links to really get in depth into response to it. But also it's important to anyone watching, if you're worried about safety, that you have the Safe Zone app and you follow the connected routes. And the Safe Zone app, if you're in any situation, there's an emergency button. And recently a few of us officers went to campus security and actually tested it out live, and there's a video on the Kent Union Instagram which you can watch. Will perhaps give you a bit of reassurance of what happens when you click that. In a couple of minutes they will come and find you and ensure you're safe and doing well. So yeah, it's a really big issue, and we're looking at kind of inclusive campaigns. And recently we recruited, well, not at Kent Uni, at the university. I was involved in a hiring panel for a specialist wellbeing advisor for bullying, hate crime incidences and discrimination. And this is where next year, I think the university are very good at their sexual misconduct consent getting campaign, but we want to run an equal campaign based on like hate incidences, and really creating an inclusive environment and stamping out any intolerances or anyone who's got any prejudice against any part of any community. Because me as a person, I'm really passionate about ensuring all communities feel safe.
That's really good. And another of your priorities this year is raising awareness and providing support for mental health. And you've successfully introduced a drop-in for eating disorders.
Yeah.
And now you're working on a campaign with Rise and Recover.
Yeah.
In your report, you've mentioned your next steps include filming content to raise awareness and creating infographics on social media. But because this could be such a triggering subject, how do you plan to execute this delicately?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I'm really glad you asked that, and it's good to keep that fresh in my mind as I organise the campaign and the work behind it. And I think, particularly as a student who has an understanding of eating disorders from my undergraduate as studying psychology, we did a lot of work on eating disorder. So I kind of know like what they are, and I've always been passionate about it. When I've run in the elections previously, I've always been an advocate for this work, and I feel like I have a quite good understanding. But to be reassuring that this will be done in a sensitive manner, I'll be working with like the NHS, ensuring we're using pre-existing tools as well, not creating new ones that I'm basing off my knowledge, but using the facts and professional help, such as BEAT as well, the charity that support people with eating disorders, and using their infographics. But I also want to kind of leverage on some of the campaign work that they're doing as a national charity BEAT, and one is particularly around like say no to calories, which is calories on menus, because that for someone who's suffering from an eating disorder or someone in recovery, it can be quite triggering to see those. So something I'd like to do is review on campus the kind of if those are on menus, and ensuring we can have options where they aren't, so students who might be suffering from an eating disorder don't have to go through that really triggering process.
So on existing services on mental health, the one of which is Canterbury's Nightline. So the service used to run for 5 nights a week, but so far it's become more scarce. So how would you go about reviving the service?
Yeah, that is a really good one, and I've seen over the past couple of years that Nightline has declined quite a lot. I think partly it might be to do with volunteers. You know, it is quite a process to get involved, but it's a rewarding one too. However, I feel like over COVID, people have kind of, especially in the cost of living crisis, students with their time can't really afford to be doing social activity or volunteering work, because it's either that or a paid employment. So really, I do want to perhaps do more awareness of being a volunteer for Nightline, and perhaps doing a bit of a sign-up drive in the new year. You know, it's a new year, why not try something new? So we can definitely do that. But also to reassure people that that isn't the only service that you can access 24/7 or in the night time. We have at the University Spectrum Life, which has recently just been made 24/7. So that's a similar thing to Nightline, where you can access support on demand whenever you need it at any hour of the day. And I think it's a really good service. There's so much support on there for you, from even things like cost of living and the worry that might bring, and financial worries as well. So there's really good initiatives, and SSW, Student Support and Wellbeing, are such a great service, and I've managed this year to create a really strong relationship with the head of SSW, and I'm really proud of that, and that's why things like the eating disorder clinic have come out of that, is because of that connection and that shared passion for student mental health.
We do have one question from the chat. So it's, how do you plan to sufficiently support students over the winter break, as some will remain on campus but may suffer from issues such as loneliness in a period where there's less support?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I'm glad that someone has put that in the chat. So I was recently involved in a meeting called Christmas Arrangements, where we discuss as a university, Student Support and Wellbeing, College and Community Life and others, about what initiatives are we running over Christmas. So I'll Give It a Go at Kent Union are doing lots of great activities to support students and build communities over Christmas. We've got things like snow globe making, and in the new year there's going to be a Christmas meal for students, international students. And I'm really aware of the students that might be on campus and the support they need. Also, for example, queer students who might be going back to homes that don't accept them, and I really want to put out messages that's to reinforce the idea that you're not alone, and ensuring we've got activities, support, and also Campus Pantry, our food service, short-term foods.
Will these events happen on Medway as well, or is it just Canterbury?
Yeah, there are some things about Medway arrangements. The Oasis Lounge, they're keeping that open over Christmas, and they're hoping to do food parcels as well for students there too. And similarly, we're doing that here in Canterbury with our Campus Pantry. And I just recently, with our marketing team, designed a postcard which has a picture of the officer team in Christmas jumpers, which we took today actually. And on the back, we're going to be writing handwritten messages to students and put them in the parcels. And so when students get a parcel, they'll see a handwritten message from their officer team saying that, you know, there's support for you. And I'm going to put a QR code with the Christmas arrangements as well to show students that there is support for you.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for answering.
Thank you.
We'll be back in 5 minutes with the interview with Said and Rashida. But thank you so much, Tom, for
and thank you for having me. It's been really great to speak to you.
Awesome. That's good. Okay.
I think
Covered.
it's better.